Coming to you from the University of Minnesota, Rochester, our town.
Making Rochester Accessible is the title of an upcoming event dedicated to engaging in dialogue and action. Kyle Mullen and Shelley Machuzik of the Rochester Area Brain Injury Community Committee are here to tell us all about it. Welcome to our town.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you. So can you tell us a little bit about what inspired this event?
Well, the Brain Injury Community Committee is made up of a number of professionals, family members, and survivors of brain injury with the intent of educating and supporting others in the community and with prevention, awareness. And in the conversations we had, we realized that as renovations were occurring around town, they weren't always necessarily supporting accessibility for the individuals. We think it kind of came from a lack of understanding, a lack of awareness that some of these accidental changes were happening. And so we're hopeful that engaging the local businesses in an educational discussion will help resolve that issue.
Great. Shelley, can you tell us a little bit about what the program is going to look like?
Absolutely. So to start the day, we want to serve lunch. So you get to come in, relax, network, eat, and then we start a presentation. So Beck and SEMCEL, the Southeast Center for Independent Living, are partnering up to start the day. We're talking about what it's like, real life scenarios, and then giving some tips on low cost and free renovations. Then we're going to be followed by Maxability, which is part of a task force from the Workforce Center with heavy involvement from the Mayo Clinic. They're going to be talking about hiring people with disabilities, what that is like, some tips, some resources, and then we're going to end the day with an interactive community conversation from Region 10 Quality Council and the Diversity Council. So it's a lot of different pieces, a lot of moving parts, but it will be fun.
Sounds like a really holistic approach, a lot of different perspectives on this really important issue. Can you tell me a little bit about what accessibility means? I think it's a word we hear a lot about, especially as the city is developing. What does that mean?
Sure. Accessibility to me involves a barrier that I have with mobility. So to me, and everybody seems to have a bit of a different take on accessibility, but getting to a good end service is a barrier that I face. So for some people who are blind or deaf, they have accessibility in different ways, which can also translate to usability. So maybe an online menu that they can use in e-reader if they go to a restaurant. That would give them greater accessibility to a good and service there. And
you mentioned a little bit about how, or did you want to answer that as well? You mentioned a little bit about how you're seeing some of the plans for the city, and I know we see a lot of the renderings for the Destination Medical Center and things like that. One thing that struck me was that it didn't always include people that had different accessibility needs. What do you think is the importance of imagining what this might look like and really putting that into action?
Well, when the goal is to become Destination Medical Center, there's of course going to be a larger number of people coming here for medical care, which also means there'll be a very large contingent of individuals with accessibility needs that will be coming here. If we want to be able to truly own that moniker, we need to be prepared to be accessible to all the people we're inviting to come to Rochester for various medical services. And so for local shop owners, we have all these people coming in, and if they literally aren't able to get through the front door, that can present quite a challenge moving forward.
In addition to this great event, what does BIC do the rest of the year? And then also, are you at the table in some of these conversations about the city's changes?
So for the rest of the year, we also hold some educational events. We have a booth out at the Transportation Fair every year. We make resources available to family members or survivors of brain injury, whether it be books, pamphlets, educational materials. And we also host a support group that meets that helps both survivors and their family members, because it's not something that impacts just the individual, but the whole group. And we are becoming more involved in some of the conversations, assisting through the Quality Council and some of the other community conversation events that they have helped host.
Fantastic. Is there something about the event that's coming up that you're really excited about, a particular portion of it?
That we're taking these kinds of conversations that sometimes happen within a small group, within the disability community as they're called, but inviting everyone else in so that we can share our knowledge with them and they can understand that sometimes the fixes that they need to implement are not grand. They're simple, they're easy, and it can help them become a more inclusive community all across the board.
Can you give us an example of one of those, I guess, quote unquote, I don't know if easy is the right word, but one of these kind of, things that we can start integrating now?
Perfect. Well, sometimes just widening the aisle space in stores so people with a wheelchair can navigate through them. Others can be the hinges on a door. How their front door opens can make a big difference as to whether or not somebody can actually get in or not. It may be ADA compliant, but if the two doors open the wrong manner and somebody can't get through the entryway, a simple fix could help actually bring far more people in.
A great example that I actually heard of from a friend in the cities was actually about shoveling, so people being mindful when they're shoveling and clearing the snow, especially during the season, of widening those pathways. So it's also something that can be done.
Yes, perfect.
Is there, how can people get more information, get involved, and can you remind us when the event is?
So they can reach out to us on our website, rabicc.org, and the event will be on March 2nd at the library, I believe 11 a.m. Yeah.
It's noon to 3.
Noon to 3.
I knew we need the things here.
Noon
to 3.
And can anyone, do they need to come for the whole day or can they come for portions of that time?
We would love it if people want to stay for the whole thing, but yeah, they can come whenever. It's free, it's open to anyone, so whenever and everyone, we want a lot of participation.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Good luck with the event, and we hope people come out and learn all that you have to share.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our Town is brought to you in part by the following amazing people and organizations:
the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund, and the citizens of Minnesota.
And the members of KSMQ Public Television. Thank you.
Stick around. We've got some great stories coming up on Our Town. We are going to be talking about some Latino community concerns and perspectives, and we'll be catching up with Danielle Teal as she goes bowling at Colonial Lanes. But up first, it's game night in this week's Art Culture segment.
Hi, I'm Christopher Fursa. I'm part owner of D6 Games. D6 Games is a family-owned, family-friendly game store where we have a retail space where you're able to purchase board games and role-playing games, and we also have an area where we're able to sit in the store and play games, and you can actually come to our store and look at over 100 demo games that we have that you can just pull off our shelf and play. I used to go up to the cities to play games. You know, they have an area where you can play games, but Rochester didn't really have that down here. So I tossed the idea to my nephew, my brother, and said, let's try a game store with a seating area where people can come in and sit down and play the game, you know, also sell the games. D6 Games has been open almost 2 years. February 27th will be our second anniversary. The business here has been really good. The community's really embraced us. They've, you know, ever since we opened the doors, they've been here supporting us. Well, D&D, when I was younger, it was popular, but then it sort of faded a little bit. But then ever since with Stranger Things and The Big Bang Theory came around, D&D's really came back to life. The resurgence of board games has come around. Catan has been a really popular game that you see people playing. But you know, like Monopoly and Sorry are always there, but the gaming industry is completely changed. And when we go to places to demo games or, you know, do game nights, even the parents are surprised of how the games are not, you know, have changed. You know, they're really interested and they enjoy the games that are out there now. You know, some things that we do at D6, we try to focus on, you know, if a family is looking for a game, we're here, knowledgeable staff here to help them try to find the right game for themselves. And then we'll actually sit down and at one of our tables and help explain the game if they need explanations of the game, how to play the game. And then if we can't do it, it's amazing how much the community here, if we're playing a game, there'll be people that actually will come up and actually help explain the game that have played the game before. So I mean, just seeing the community just grow and try to help each other is a great thing about that I see in D6 games. And I would say that's pretty much what the community sees here too, and that's what they love coming back here. We've gone to a few schools and set up some games for them to play. So that it's like up at the century graduation senior party. We've been up there to have games there for the kids to play through the night. And we've gone to Washington Elementary School and help them do a game night there. So I mean, but the parents just seeing the games are just surprised. And it's nice to see them because then they can see they can bring their family back and get away from the video games. The difference between a board game and a video game for me personally, is you're not able to see the person. You're able to talk to them. Then, in my case, I played video games that if somebody's mad or gets upset, they just disconnect. But when you're sitting down with the board game, you gotta actually socialize. Even if you're losing, you just gotta sit there and just take it, which is great. But it's just like I like the community because people enjoy it, have a good time. All we're here to do is just have a good time playing games.
For more information about this story and other Our Town features, connect with us on Facebook, Twitter at KSMQ #OurTown, or ksmq.org/OurTown.
It's not easy to say this, but I'll try to get it.
Ladies, listen up. There are 2 events coming up that are geared directly for you. The Katie Beth Women's Expo will be held at the Mayo Civic Center on Saturday, March 2nd from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Admission is free, so there's nothing holding you back from perusing the 70 handmade and business vendors with products and services you might fall in love with. And on Thursday, March 7th, Ladies' Night Out in Rochester will be a night of shopping, dining, and giveaways. To get a list of participating businesses and all the activities, visit downtownrochestermn.com. And check out Rochester's newest co-working space, Offices at China Hall. Co-working allows startup or small businesses a chance to share office resources, and Rochester is booming with great new business ideas. Located downtown, Offices at China Hall are inviting you to a game of ping pong as a way to get to know their space. Every Thursday night through March 28th from 5 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Get your game on and show off your best topspin or backhand. Details at officesatchinahall.com. Rock and roll and pizza. The Pure Rock Studio Youth Class is taking over Pasquale's Pizza on Friday, March 8th. Get a glimpse of Rochester's new talent and perhaps give your own kids some inspiration as the PRS students perform for you while you nosh on some New York-style pizza. And my favorite is New York-style pizza. The cost is $15 and details are at purerockstudiosmn.com. And since we are in the heat of the legislative season, the Rochester Chamber of Commerce is taking reservations for their annual trip to the Minnesota Capitol. The 2019 Day at the Capitol will be Monday, March 11th at 8:30 a.m. at 125 Live. You'll get a brief orientation about how to advocate for Rochester issues, then board coach buses for a front door drop-off in St. Paul. There'll be a rally in the Rotunda and appointments with legislators throughout the day. The bus returns by 5 p.m. and the cost is $35. More details at rochestermnchamber.com. And if you're ready for a new take on an ancient sport, check out bowling in this week's Walkabout segment.
This is Danielle Teal with Our Town Walkabout, and I'm at Colonial Lanes right now with Alex, and there's a lot of people behind me, and for good reason. The bowling league. It's a huge popular thing in Rochester, and we're going to find out why.
Minnesota, it's really cold out right now, and people are looking for something to do this time of the year.
I see there's a lot of very serious-looking faces right now.
This league here itself has been going on for over 20 years, so a lot of these guys all know each other. They're here every year, and they all want to win, and a lot of them are really good bowlers. We've got people that have had 300s. We've had people that average 220. Now, we do have leagues also that are more recreational, and you'll see those guys smiling a lot more than these guys.
You wouldn't believe this. but I actually know people that are bowling here right now, and my friend Eric is on a bowling league, so I'm just wondering, is it okay if I bowl with you guys? I gotta get a ball, but if it's too heavy, I'm not gonna be able to throw it.
It's like a 9-pound ball.
Okay, it's 9 pounds. That's like a baby, a 9-pound baby.
Pretty much.
Okay, all right, here we go.
Hold on,
Oh,
hold on. Let's get the right fingers here.
oh.
Thumb, middle, and ring.
Oh, here we go. Oh, it's a gutter! It's a gutter! Oh no!
Busiest league nights are Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. We have all 20 lanes full every one of those nights between men's league, women's league, and just recreational leagues.
So I get another chance?
Get another chance.
We're gonna make this one happen. All right, here we go. Oh no! Eric, you should show me what to do. Show me what to do. And he's going down. Here we go. Oh! Oh! That was impressive.
8 is better.
At the center of the recent government shutdown and now a declaration of a state of emergency by the Trump administration is the question of a wall between the United States and Mexico and the rest of Latin America. According to the Pew Research Center, an overwhelming number of Latinos are concerned about their place in American society. Here in Rochester and Southeast Minnesota, generally, Latinos have had a long part of the history and fabric of the city and the region. And here to chat with us about the Latino community right here in Rochester are Miriam Goodson and Danny Solis from ACLA, the Alliance of Chicanos, Hispanos, and Latino Americans. Thank you for joining us here on Our Town.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I said a lot to introduce the topic, to put that into some context, but I wanted to start off a little bit by both of you just telling me what ACLA is and the purpose it served in this community.
Well, ACLA has been here for 16 years since we formed the Alliance of Chicanos, Hispanic, and Latin Americans, and you can look it up as, if you Google it, ACLA, Rochester, Minnesota, and there we are. Our mission has been to build our community, to help the Hispanic community to integrate to the larger community. And sometimes we are trying to help bridge that communication gap that sometimes exists between those that can and those that cannot, the underserved.
Thank you. Do you have something to add, Dan?
Oh, I just think it's an amazing organization. I've been with ACLA pretty much since I arrived here several years ago, and education, healthcare, the arts, culture, all of those are things that ACLA is concerned with, and specifically the Hispanic community, as the name says, but also I think the community in general.
And so the name itself has a few different names within it, and if maybe we could give everyone a little one-on-one on some of the distinctions between Chicano, Hispano, and Latino or Latinx is another term that's being used as well.
Well, we welcome inclusivity, and sometimes to describe us is not fair to say one term, because we are very rich cultures. We have so many different countries all come together, so you cannot clump us in one Latin people classification. So we use the Hispanic because it's more inclusive of everybody. And then the Chicano, they have their own culture. And Danny can say about that.
Yeah, I like the name because it seems like Latinos in general, if you say like Latin America and the Latinate countries in Europe, we've got such a rich and varied culture, and we have a hard time deciding what we're going to call ourselves and each other, right? So Chicano is a word that was coined in the late 50s, early 60s to denote somebody who was, as I like to say, OMD, of Mexican descent, but not from Mexico, from the United States. So you had really two cultures melding, the traditional Mexican culture and then what it transformed into here in the United States. So somebody who is of Mexican descent but a United States citizen. And Chicano was something because I am Chicanx, which is the word I like to use now, because we take away the male O, the denotation, so that it's non-gender specific, Chicanx, right? But I like that because we really, in some ways, are neither fish nor fowl. we're really not like a Mexicano from Mexico, but we're not completely your stereotype, you know, white U.S. all-American citizen either. Even though we are, we're not considered to be that. So we are a separate culture, and there's so many different cultures in Latin America. And you think about what was the Spanish culture in Spain. Well, then you know, if you talk to somebody from Spain, they'll ask you what part of Spain. You know, so it's very specific in terms of cultural identity. And then you say, you know, oh, if you're from Colombia, you're from Argentina, you know, you're from Mexico. All of those places have Spanish ties and many more, but they also have the indigenous cultures that affect them. So they become a culture unto itself, you know. So I could go on and on. I'm going to stop right there.
Well, no, I mean, it's a great introduction to that conversation, because for people that aren't aware about all that diversity, it's an important thing, because it is easy to lump everyone together for some people. One of the questions that I thought we could talk a little bit about is particularly about how community members here and the community members that you work with through ACLA, what are you hearing from them about just the national climate and even just the general climate that's happening about the wall and anti-immigrant sentiment?
Well, has uncovered some fears, and then it's creating a trauma to a lot of families, because if they are truly thinking that deportation is at their door, they may not access a lot of the services that are available for the community. And just as a human right to be treated with respect and dignity, sometimes they feel that they are not welcome anymore. So it is threatening, because their families are being a threat, because if you lose one member of the family, social services and the education programs are going to suffer, and the community is going to suffer too. So there is a microaggression that is happening constantly. So what happens when that is happening over and over and again?
Well, to add to what you're saying, Miriam, to underline it, underscore it, anytime anyone fears deportation, they're going to become more isolated. They're less likely to use social services. They're less likely to participate in extracurricular activities with their children in and around school. They're less likely to call the police or the sheriff's department when a crime has been committed. They're less likely to file income taxes. So when you talk about a wall, there are already walls being put up around individuals and families within our community. The psychological walls and physical walls, in some way, they become physical walls because they physically isolate people from the rest of their community and decrease their participation in that community. So, and psychologically, people feel separated and segregated by the attitudes that people have and by the fear, but to be quite honest and frank, by the fear-mongering that's been taking place by Trump and Republicans and other people within our community, who now, because of the issue of the wall, seem to have been emboldened, and they come out and do racist things. My son's own school, elementary school, I have a son in 5th grade. Last year there was a point where at recess and in the lunchroom, children had to be stopped from chanting "Build the Wall." So it's very real, and the effects are very deleterious for our entire community, because we all benefit from each other's presence and that diversity in the community. And once you begin to isolate one group for whatever reason, then everybody suffers.
And how have you seen in the last year and the last 2 years the community either coming together, the Latino community, and then maybe allies as well, to address some of these concerns?
That is the benefits of living in a community, that the faith-based community has put together groups, coalitions, and right now we have the Legal Defense Fund, that Immigration Legal Defense Fund working for us, that up to the 16th we had over $15,000 raised. We need over $50,000 in order to hire an immigration lawyer that is going to be able to come in this area to advocate for some of those people that they face deportation and they don't have a due process. So sometimes important that we give them their rights, and also to build a conscious mind that the separation of families, we know that is not the right way to handle some of these situations, and to be able to provide some support for the families that are going to be left if this continues, because I'm hopeful that all the faith-based community and justice-based communities are coming together to say enough. It's not one more family to be separated. We need to work at helping each other with the values of love your neighbor, and there are beautiful things happening right now.
Well, thank you both so much for joining us and for sharing this important perspective. Thank you all for joining us here from the University of Minnesota, Rochester. We've got some information, as you see all the snow is out there, about all of the important snow removal reminders. You can check that out on the city website. And we look forward to seeing you next time on Our Town, the show about Rochester.
Save me now.